Sicily doesn't have a city that's quite big enough for this series, so I thought, why not include the whole island? So here are the stadiums and arenas of Sicily, Italy. Stadio San Filippo. Despite being home to a third-tier club, this is the largest stadium on Sicily, albeit by just a couple thousand seats. The construction of this fine stadium first started way back in 1991, although before much could be built, the club went bankrupt. And from what I understand, bankruptcy is not conducive to stadium building. It was finally completed in 2004. They had to move a whole lot of earth to build it, as all but the southern end are built into the hill. I do rather like that, although I'd imagine they'd miss out on a few ticket sales due to some people who watch the game from this hill. So hopefully they don't go bankrupt yet again. I mean, they have already done so since moving into the stadium, but hopefully not again. Stadio Giovanni Celeste. This is the club's old ground. You can see how they tried to maximise the plot of land that they had, which can just barely accommodate a full-sized field. But they were never going to come close to the capacity of their new home. This place is in very poor condition. You might be wondering why it's still standing. Well, it was used by another club for several years. However, they stopped playing here 10 years ago. So I guess they just don't want to or can't be bothered demolishing it. What they should do is release a public statement that says, "We here at Stadium Management refuse to pay the pizzo. Not because we are broke, but because we believe that the mafia is pathetic. They couldn't even destroy the stadium if they tried. And they certainly couldn't clean up the rubble afterwards and take it to the tip." Speaking of the tip, Stadio Tupparello's name is derived from the word tuppa, which means garbage. The area used to be a literal dump. It's actually not all that uncommon for stadiums to be built on landfill. It's just that most people wouldn't think to then name the stadium after it. It's not exactly a garbage stadium. In fact, if anyone were to say so, I would rubbish those claims, because that's a trash take, a load of junk. However, it is far from perfect. Currently the capacity is reduced to 8,000 for safety reasons. Although by the looks of it, that's more than enough seats to meet the demand. The club is at the moment competing in the 4th tier of Italian football, which is, I believe, comprised of mostly semi-professional clubs. PalaTupparello was built alongside the stadium, not chronologically, just geographically, although the stadium was renovated extensively whilst this place was being built. Speaking of renovations, this arena was renovated and reopened just this year. It was also renamed after Franco Battiato, which is a good indication that this place is predominantly a concert venue rather than a sporting one. Stadio Angelo Massimino, more commonly known as Cibali, after the district of the city in which it's located. The stadium is nearly 90 years old. However, it too is fresh off a renovation, albeit a modest one, in 2023. They gave it new seats throughout and a bright blue running track. It is for the most part a fairly typical old school Italian design, but there is one aspect that caught my eye. This stand here in the northern corner is a little peculiar. It's actually reserved for the away supporters. They've got their own little roof. Isn't that cute? In some parts of the world, England, it's common to have the away stand be the only section without covered seating. I guess that's Sicilian hospitality? PalaNesima is an arena that got off to a bad start in life. It was built with the intention of hosting events at the 1997 Universiade, which were held on Sicily, but it didn't. After that, it only occasionally hosted sporting events and was a loss maker for the city, which is why it is, as of today, abandoned and heavily vandalized. However, there have been plans drawn up to redevelop it. We'll see how that goes. Stadio Nicola di Simone is named after a Syracuse player who died after a clash on the pitch in 1979. To be clear, it wasn't this pitch, it was in a small town near Napoli, called Parma Campania. The current stadium consists of a ramshackle assortment of stands, owing to the fact that it used to be a multi-purpose stadium with a track. and the club have tried to transform it into a football-specific stadium with limited funds. The main stand is original and is looking good. Just try to look past the elements of that facade that are overt remnants of the fascist era. The ground is situated a stone's throw from the ocean, which is always nice, but it's even closer to this building here, which is where Saint Lucia was killed. Well, the building was erected after the fact. But don't feel too bad for her, she's got a beautiful island nation named after her now. PalaSport Fondo Patti. In 2008, a storm damaged the roof of this building, and it too has since been abandoned. Although they have been planning on renovating it for ages, but it just keeps getting delayed. Looks like there'll be no ball game today either. Stadio Renzo Barbera. Just like the one in Syracuse, this was opened way back in 1932, and although it has changed a lot since those days, it too has at least one reminder of the past, that being the facade of the main stand consisting of 3 big arches, which still make for a grand entrance even if it has been completely overshadowed by the seating itself. That has been expanded multiple times over the years. This too used to have a running track around the field, but I think they've done a better job at transforming it into a football-specific stadium. The interior design is nothing too far out of the ordinary. It's a perfectly symmetrical double-tiered seating bowl. Nothing spectacular. The same can't be said for the lovely Mount Pellegrino in the backdrop. No, that's not where San Pellegrino sparkling water comes from. San Pellegrino sparkling water comes from the supermarket. The stand over on that side is actually named after the mountain, yet those sitting in it are the only ones without a view of it. Velodromo Paolo Borsellino. I mentioned the mafia earlier in a facetious manner, but it's no joke in these parts. The stadium is actually named after a judge who spent most of his career fighting against the mafia and was killed by a mafia car bomb in 1992. There are several other buildings in the city that are named after him, and rightfully so. This stadium was built with funds that were available for the 1990 World Cup. Of course, it was the previous stadium that actually hosted games, not this one. Stadio Renzo Barbera was renovated prior to the event, and well, I guess it had some cash left over. Throughout its history, this place has been closed and reopened a couple of times. It was left abandoned for around 10 years, and was in very poor shape up until renovations were made, and it reopened just recently. Currently its main use is football americano and concerti. And those were the Stadiums of Sicily. Very interesting indeed. As always, thanks for watching, have a good one.